G'day folks, today we're going to be building animated flaming ruins, which will surely be a spectacle when you put them down on your 40k tabletop. And if you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. We're going to dive right in by going over the tools and materials you need for this project. So you need a good old-fashioned steel ruler, hot glue gun, some PVA glue, side cutters, box cutter knife. You need some cardboard, some 5mm coffee stir sticks, a piece of masonite or MDF board for your base, and a piece of foam cord for your walls. The other thing you need are a building template, which you can search for and download off the internet. And of course we need the flickering tea lights. Diving right in, first thing we're going to do is cut the windows out of the window template, and this will be used as a stencil to draw the windows onto the foam core. And we start cutting our walls to shape here. Alright, so they're going to be about as wide as the MDF board. And then you just trace the windows right onto the foam core. And make sure your knife is really sharp when you start this project. Cutting foam core with a dull knife is annoying. So when you start cutting the windows out, you want to kind of use kind of a choppy motion through the foam core. You don't want to put the knife all the way through the foam core just yet. We're going to do multiple passes with the knife just to make sure we've got a clean window edge. Having a sharp knife really makes this a lot easier. So here we are, we got our windows punched out, and we're just going to clean up the edges with the really sharp knife. And we don't want the foam core on the windowsills to show, so we're going to cut some card, I think about 5-6 mil thick, and then we'll use that to line the inner perimeter of the window. And cut them all to fit. And then we're going to just drop a bead of super low viscosity crazy glue to hold them in place. And lather, rinse, repeat for the rest of the windows. This works a little bit fiddly, but the end result is really worth it. I think it took me about 30 minutes to do this on all the windows. So of course ruined buildings need to have some battle damage, so I'm going to start hacking off some of the sides of the foam core walls to give it that exploded look. No real pattern to this. You know, if you want to look up what ruined bomb exploded buildings look like and give you an idea of how to cut the ruins. So we're going to start mounting the foam core walls to the MDF base now. And it looks like I made one wall a little too wide, so I got to cut some more off. So you just crack off with a knife, and then I chip it up with the side cutters like I initially did. Just give it that little bit more worn look. And we use good old-fashioned hot glue to glue the foam core walls to the base. I use a lot of different types of glues, but in this case hot glue is most appropriate because both substances are porous and I'll be able to cover up any hot glue that might be showing. And it takes a few minutes to dry, and once that's done, then we're going to put the second floor on. And of course the second floor will give your models a vantage point to shoot out some of the wrecked windows. That too is mounted with hot glue. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put a little bit of a fascia on the corner of the building. We don't want to see the edges of the foam core on an area of the building that's not supposed to be damaged. Seeing the foam core edges is fine for the ruined part of the walls, but not for something that looks finished. So a 2 centimeter wide strip of card and then hot glue it onto the corner. We'll turn that into a nice finished edge. Foam core walls with no other detail on them look a little bland, a little two-dimensional. So we're going to put some buttresses in between each of the windows. So I just cut a 1 centimeter wide swath of foam core, and that's going to get glued to the main building walls right in between the windows. And once those are glued in place, then we're going to cover up the edge with some card. So I think about 5-6 mil wide piece of card, crazy glued into place, will give us a nice finished edge on the buttresses. One of the most obviously overlooked details when building ruins is the inside. While certainly the inside needs to be ruined just like the outside, you're going to want to build a floor and then rough it up and make it look destroyed. That way the viewer gets the impression that there was something on the inside of the building before it was destroyed. So we do that just by measuring some card, and then we'll measure out some 1.5 by 1.5 squares of cardstock, and then we're going to hot glue them to the floor base, and then that will be installed at a later point. So we just cut up a whole slew of tiles, and then slowly but surely glue them all down to the floor templates. Building the floors as a sub-assembly to the ruins allows us a greater degree of control in painting and detailing that wouldn't otherwise be achievable. Painting the floor sub-assembly is pretty straightforward. Just put down some black artist paint onto the floor tiles. The only critical factor here is you want to make sure that you get in between all the tile areas so you don't get any annoying lines showing through. Let them dry thoroughly, and then we're just going to put one dry brush coat on top of them. And this will bring up the tile detail quite nicely. And there you have it, your floors are ready for installation. We're now at one of my favorite parts of construction, and that's adding the first layers of detail. First thing, we're going to add some I-beam girders, and I recently did a video on how to make I-beam girders. So I just reach into that inventory, pull a couple out, and we'll attach them to the bottom of the second floor. The other thing we're going to add is some wire mesh that'll look like rebar, and we're going to add some wire, some electrical wire, to droop down from the broken second floor. Here's a detailed piece of a street sign. I just dug into my bits box and kind of threw some stuff together. I think it turned out pretty good. And now we take everything outside, break out a black spray paint rattle can, and give it a good coat. And once our spray paint is dried thoroughly, we're going to start dry brushing the entire model. Here I just use a light gray. We're going to add a little bit more detail to the interior now. Paint up some 5mm coffee stir sticks, just flash them with some brown ink, and they'll add for a nice little color contrast on the inside of the ruins. And now with those details taken care of, it's time to install our floor. So you whip out your hot glue gun, and the only trick to this is you want the floor to dry straight, so you need to apply even pressure across the whole floor plate when it's gluing down. And once the floors are glued down and the details installed on the inside, it's really starting to look good. Now it's time to pour some love on the outside of the building. So we're going to start by basing the building. Mix up some water and PVA glue. I use a 50-50 mix. And paint it straight onto the base. And then once you're ready, you're just going to dunk it in your substrate tray and pour a bunch of bird gravel all over it. Shake off the excess, and there you have a based building. So while we wait for the gravel on the base to dry, we're going to take some time to paint up the details that we put on the interior. So we're going to paint the rebar sticking out, and we're going to paint the wires dangling down. With wires specifically, you want to choose a nice vibrant color, and we'll ink them down a little bit later on so they're not so bright and they look a little bit weathered. But this is when the terrain piece really starts to come to life. And with those details done, we turn our attention to the base again. Now we're going to put down a coat of brown paint all over the base. Nice sloppy painting. Really wet, watered down brown paint all over the base. And then it'll be ready for dry brushing. Now for the really fun part, we start building up the flickering tea light with some plush fill that you use in stuffed animals that'll end up being the smoke. So you hot glue some bamboo skewers to the side of the tea light, and that'll be basically a little armature for the plush fill to stick onto. And I wrap the tea light with some masking tape and add a drop of crazy glue. That way those armatures will not come off ever. And then once that's done, then you just stick the plush fill on, hot gluing it as you go. Not a high finesse job here, but just do whatever looks good. And you want to hide the tea light as much as possible. You only eventually just want to see the light coming out of the smoke. And we're ready to turn them on. So the tea lights don't flicker that well under bright light, so we'll turn the lights down and we can see what things are starting to look like. And this is our chance to touch up the plush fill, or smoke, if you will, and close up any gaps that we may have missed. This critical next step is where we turn the plush fill into something that looks like smoke.
And for this, I'm using an airbrush. I don't use an airbrush too often, but that's probably because I don't really know how to use it. But this is a nice simple application. You can probably use a black spray paint to do the same effect. The smoke clouds are a little fragile at this point, so we're going to give them a good dose of clear coat. That forms a nice protective shell around the cloud. We're really starting to get to the home stretch now. So we're going to dry brush some black paint over the areas that should have been colored by smoke. That includes smoke on the outside windows, as well as all over the floor and walls on the inside. And you'll notice I've added a little bit more flair with some decals on the building, and there'll be some on the oil drums and crates that we put in as well. And no ruined building's complete without some reindeer moss as some foliage. In the very last piece of construction is we're going to go over the whole ruin again with a little bit more black dry brushing. This gives you a chance to fix anything that looks like it should be burnt and it's not. And the last thing we're going to do is give it a good clear coat to add some durability. With the clear coat dry, we are finished our project. Here it is in all its glory. I think it turned out quite well. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next time.
The Emperor wishes you a lovely day.